Hello, this is Drew Alia here. I'm coaching Avonlea here about our big talk. The floor is yours.
My big talk is over mental illnesses and how it is portrayed through media, and I talk a lot about how the generations have portrayed it and the advances with my generation. And I decided to talk about this because I struggle from anxiety and depression for a long time, and I don't feel that even in 2018, mental illness is portrayed in a positive light through movies and TV shows, which I think really shapes the perspectives of younger people and our willingness to admit that we suffer from these and get the help we need.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I was born in 1997. I'd always assumed that I was a millennial, so when I finally sat down and actually took the time to Google and research what generation I fell under, I was surprised to see I'm in a weird gap between a millennial and a new generation called the Generation Z. Since I was born in 1997, I am 21 years old, but on research and through Google, it says that to be a part of the Generation Z, you have to be 20 years old to 13 years old to 20 years old. So I fall in the middle. So I consider myself an older Generation Z. What I learned from Google and through research about the characteristics of this Generation Z was that my generation is a generation of entrepreneurs and co-creators. We're independent, we're outspoken, and we demand to be heard. Being a part of this Generation Z, I've had the opportunity to not only see what millennials have done to change history in a positive way, but I've had the opportunity to see how my generation, the new generation, has also changed history. Being an older Generation Z, I witnessed what it was like growing up without an iPhone and an iPad, unlike a lot of the younger part of my generation that have grown accustomed to this technology lifestyle. Although I've been a part of a generation that have made increasing changes in society, from advances ranging from technology to lifestyle, one topic and one theme I've seen that has been shadowed and have not been portrayed correctly, I still feel to this day in 2018, is the way we view and interpret mental illnesses. Growing up in the early 2000s, I was never really informed that people went to the doctor for other things other than the annual flu shot or for a school physical. I had a great childhood growing up. I can't say anything different than that. But a major ongoing memory from these early ages consisted of me having this weird feeling almost every night when I would be asleep in my own bed that I was feeling homesick. When I was 9 years old, I started having this major fear of death. Obviously, death is a scary thing for anyone to try to understand, but it's not very typical for a 9-year-old to want to worry about or have to worry about on a daily basis. When I was 11 years old, I started randomly feeling this urge to do random movements at consistent times, repeatedly, multiple times. If I would touch my finger on the right side of my hand, this one right here, let's say 10 times, I would have to repeatedly do it on the other side of my hand right after the same exact time. When I was 15 years old, I took a trip to Florida with my family for a few weeks, and this was like a really major breaking point, I feel, with my mental health, because in those 2 weeks, I didn't leave the hotel room, honestly, at all. I didn't talk. I was just kind of to myself, and I honestly had this feeling once again that I was homesick in my own body and in my own mind. Around the same time is when my parents would start asking me what was wrong with me. Why are you like this? Which, when you don't understand what's wrong with you or what's even going on inside your head and you can't put it into words, it's even more frustrating and scary. It wasn't until I met with my family doctor when I was about 16 or maybe 17 that I was diagnosed with depression, OCD, and anxiety. I was given a cocktail of medications to make me feel better, or so to say, to make me act normal. But being told I had all these things wrong with me and I needed something to be given to me to be fixed, like a cocktail of drugs, was even more unsettling and uncomfortable than honestly not knowing altogether. I was never taught about mental health in school or honestly at home. It wasn't a topic, a conversation sitting around our dinner table, and it wasn't something that was brought up with our counselors at school. My school counselors were considered academic counselors, and when somebody would be pulled out of class to go talk to these counselors, I assumed it was to talk about their schedules or how they were doing academically. I'm a part of a new generation, Generation Z, the more accepting generation. The generation where I sat and watched in maybe the second grade, the third grade, and saw the first African-American man become president. My generation, we didn't think this was different. We knew it was a major change in history, but we didn't think anything was wrong or anything had changed. I'm part of a generation who advocate and fought to change the ways and the perspectives of older generations like the baby boomers. The generation that did not ask for acceptance from other people and other individuals, but rather we demanded it. I'm proud to say that I'm a part of this new generation, but what I'm not proud to say is the lack of conversation and the portrayal of mental illnesses still in my generation. 50 years ago, society had the understanding and the belief that people struggling with mental illnesses were not only dangerous, but scary. And the places and the institutions that these individuals got sent to were terrifying places. In 2008, we are more accepting and more comfortable with the topic of mental health. We hear about self-help books, podcasts, even supplements, everything to increase awareness, but in reality, it's to sell more products. 1 in 5 individuals are diagnosed with a mental illness, and nearly 450 people around the world are going through the same things that one of you guys are. And we say we're more accepting of everyone, and we say we live in such a time and age that the elders and the baby boomers say they never thought would come, or they never thought they would see. But have we really advanced so much in our generation when every other hit TV show or movie portrays the stigma of individuals struggling with a mental illness as scary or dangerous? We are comfortable and accepting of the conversation of mental illnesses. We all say that if anybody needs help, you can always talk to us. And we see flyers and pamphlets and posts on social media about asking for help. And we say that we're more comfortable with this topic. But are we more comfortable with it really? We say we've broken the statistic, but really, we are comfortable with talking to other people about the statistic, but what we aren't comfortable with is saying that we are 1 in 5 part of this statistic that is struggling. We say we've broken the stigma surrounding mental illnesses, but through media, we are faced with the same negative portrayal, which is increasingly damaging to how we interpret the world around us and how we overall see ourselves and other people. Every other box office movie that comes out is centered around psychological thrillers, like Split, where the main movie character is struggling with a mental illness, like multiple personality disorders, and is represented as a threat to society. He's represented as ultimately a killer, which shows us and we interpret in our minds that people struggling with mental health illnesses such as multiple personality disorders, that they are killers. But why? Because it sells. How are we supposed to progress and grow as a society when we are shown time and time again that through the use of media, that this mental illness stigma has not ended, but yet it has transformed into a way that box office and media and society profit off of? I was born with anxiety, depression, and OCD. From the moment I was born into this world, my genetic makeup and DNA have made me a part of this 1 in 5 statistic. I'm not ashamed of it because I've learned from proper resources and information it's not a negative characteristic or a dangerous characteristic about me. It does not define me. Living with anxiety, I have periods of, yes, anxiousness, fear, and worry, but I'm also a highly sensitive person because of this. It also allows me to care a lot about other people. I have moments when struggling with depression where I'm silent and I don't want to speak, but it also means I understand the value of listening to others in a way that makes them want to speak and speaking in a way that makes other people want to listen. My generation has the ability to listen in a way that makes others want to speak and speak in a way that makes others want to listen. We've shown that we can demand to have our voices being heard. through everything from the LBG community to the Me Too movement, everything else that older millennials, younger millennials, and my generation have spoken out for, then why can't we speak out against this? My generation has proven time and time again that we have the ability to change minds and perspectives that we once thought were unchangeable. We won't ever be able to control what media puts out or what box office movie sells the most, but what we can do is change the way we hear that is spoken, and we can speak in a way that acknowledges that we listen to what we are hearing. Thank you.
Okay, so just some general feedback. I like the topic a lot, and I think it's really good, and with how you can relay a lot of like your personal life to it and everything. Yeah, I really liked how you tied in like the movie Split, and with just really like basically bashing the media and everything, because that's what I've done for a lot of my stuff as well.
Mm-hmm.
I also really liked where you were just talking about how we can't change the media, but you're still passionate about having your voice heard and everything. And I think that's one of the biggest things we can have, because just people with fear to speak up against things. If we lose that as a society, then we really lose everything. Going line by line now. Let's see, 10-4. So going line by line, I thought you had like a whole bunch of great information, obviously, and you went, is it 8 to 10 minutes?
Yes.
Okay. But just going line by line, I think with everything you have is really good. Maybe what we can do is work on maybe just getting a little more organization with it. Just because like you talk about like your personal experiences, and then you kind of jump in, like you talk about like your the upbringing of your whole life, which I thought was a really good build up. And then you just kind of jump to like the media, and then you kind of go back to the personal life, then you kind of just start going back and forth. So maybe we could just find a little more of a consistency there.
Yeah.
Working with all of that. So let's see here. What?
Do you want me to go back and try it with like a different organizational pattern with what you had said and see how that works?
Yeah, we can do that. Even just like part of it, maybe. So like, let's see, we got the initial part, like you just talking about like the comparison with millennial versus Gen Z and all that stuff, and then building up, and then maybe even before you even give like your whole background, maybe we can use that as a little more of a climax, like for the climax and stuff. Maybe talk about, introduce some of the media stuff and all of that, and then make a big jump into your personal life, and then we can kind of tie both of them together at the end.
Okay.
Maybe trying that. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, I can do that. So let's start out with then the millennials and whatnot, and then talking about the millennials, and then I was born in 1997. I've always assumed I was a millennial because I was born in 1997. But when I finally sat down and actually researched what generation I fell under, I was surprised to see that I'm a part of this new generation called Generation Z. Being born in 97, I fall in a weird gap where I'm not considered a millennial because I'm not 22, but I'm not considered fully a Gen Z because I'm over 20 years old. So I like to call myself an older Generation Z. What I learned from Google and researching my generation is that my generation is a generation of entrepreneurs and co-creators. We're independent, we're outspoken, and we have loud voices, and we want to be heard. Being a part of this Generation Z, I have had the opportunity to not only see how millennials have changed histories in major ways, but also how my new generation, the upcoming generation, Gen Z, has also changed history so far. Being an older Generation Z, I've witnessed what it was like growing up without an iPad and an iPhone controlling my life. Unlike the younger part of my generation that has grown accustomed to this technology lifestyle. Although I've been a part of a generation that has made increasing changes in society to advances ranging from technology to lifestyle, one major advance that we say is an advance, but I don't feel has been advanced yet, is how we interpret it how we interpret and view mental illnesses. "50 years ago, society had the understanding and the belief that people struggling with mental illnesses were not only dangerous but scary individuals, and that the places and institutions where these individuals were sent were terrifying places. In 2018, we're more accepting and more comfortable with the topic of mental health. We hear about self-help books, podcasts, and even supplements, everything to so-called increase awareness. But in reality, it's just to sell more products. 1 in 5 individuals are diagnosed with a mental illness, and nearly 450 million people around the world are going through the same thing one of you guys are. We say we live in such an accepting time where we accept everyone, and we say we live in such a time that elders and baby boomers say they never thought would come. But have we really advanced so much in our generation when every other hit TV show and movie portrays the stigma of individuals struggling with mental illness as dangerous and scary? We're comfortable and accepting of the conversation of mental illnesses, but we aren't comfortable admitting that we are part of this 1 in 5 statistic that is struggling. We say we've broken the stigma surrounding mental illnesses, but through media, we are faced with this negative portrayal, which is increasingly damaging to how we not only perceive the world, but how we perceive other people and how we talk about this stigma. Every other box office movie that comes out is centered around psychological thrillers. Yeah, they're exciting and they're fun to watch and they keep you on the edge of their seats, but the underlying problem is how we today in 2018 still perceive people struggling with these mental illnesses. Let's take Split for an example. The main movie character is struggling with multiple personality disorders, and he ultimately ends up killing people. Therefore, he's shown through a light that's negative that he's dangerous to society and that he's unstable. But why? Because it sells. How are we supposed to progress and grow as a society when we are shown time and time again through the use of media that this mental illness stigma has not really changed, but yet it's transformed into a way that we can profit off of? I was born with anxiety, depression, and OCD. And growing up in the early 2000s, I was shown that and thought that people that went to the doctor, it was only for an annual flu shot or to get a school physical. I had a great childhood growing up, but a major ongoing memory from my early ages consists of me having weird feelings almost every night when I would be asleep in my own bed that I was almost homesick. When I was 9 years old, I started having this major fear of death. Obviously, death is a scary thing for anybody to understand and to think about, but it's not a typical thing for a 9-year-old to have to worry about on a daily basis. I didn't understand at the time that this was symptoms of having OCD. What we talked about in school and even at home at my dinner table was not about mental illnesses. It was about academics and what was going on in the world. When I was 11, I started randomly having this urge to do certain movements or actions a certain amount of time consistently. I would touch my finger on the right side of my hand 12 times, and then I would have to repeat it on the same hand, the same finger, the exact times again. This is also an underlying symptom of anxiety and OCD, which I wasn't aware of. When I was 15 years old, I had a major breakthrough when I took a trip with my family to Florida. In those few weeks, I didn't leave my room. I spent the majority of the time not speaking, keeping to myself, and honestly just sleeping. Once again, I started having this same feeling that I was homesick in my own body, in my own mind. Around the same time, my parents would start asking me, what was wrong with me? Why are you such in a mood? And it's honestly frustrating, and it's uncomfortable, and it's scary because you can't put into words how you're feeling inside when you don't understand it yourself. It wasn't until I met with my family doctor when I was about 16 or 17 that I realized I suffer from depression, OCD, and anxiety. I was given a cocktail medications to help me feel better, to help me make me have more normal emotions. But being told I had all these things wrong with me and that I needed a way to fix myself was even more unsettling and more uncomfortable. I was never taught in school or at home what mental illness was. I thought my school counselors were just academic counselors, not somebody that you could reach out to and talk to, nor did I think people actually did that. I am part of a new generation, the more accepting generation, where I sat and I watched in my 3rd grade class the first African man become president. I'm a part of a generation who advocate and fight for change and ways to change the older generation's perspectives. And we've shown time and time again that we can do that this change is achievable. I'm proud to say I'm a part of this new generation. I'm proud to say I'm a part of a generation where we're independent, we're outspoken, we're creators. But what I'm not proud of is the portrayal of mental illnesses still in my generation. How are we supposed to progress as a society when we're shown... Oh, I already did that. Being born with anxiety, depression, and OCD, I've realized that this is how I was born and that this is a part of my DNA and my genetic makeup that makes me part of this 1 in 5 statistic. It's not something I'm ashamed of because I've learned through proper resources and information that it's not a negative characteristic about me and it's not something dangerous or damaging to myself or to the society around me. Living with anxiety, I have periods of anxiousness, fear, and worry. I'm highly sensitive because of this, but it also means that I care a lot about other people and I'm sensitive about other people. I have moments when I'm struggling with depression, where I'm silent and I don't want to speak. But it also means I understand the value of listening to others in a way that makes them want to speak, and I speak in a way that makes others want to listen. My generation has the ability to listen in a way that makes others want to speak, and to speak in a way that makes others want to listen. My generation has proven time and time again that we are able to change the perspectives of individuals in our society, and that we can make breakthroughs. We won't ever be able to control what media puts out or what comes out in the box office next, what psychological thriller or mental illness is portrayed in a damaging portrayal next. But what we can change is the way we hear things that are spoken and the way we interpret it, what others say, and speaking in a way that acknowledges what we listen to.
All right. Yeah, so I thought that sounded like
More
kind of tied everything more around together and stuff. I don't know what your personal thoughts are on that.
No, I think that works too, yeah.
So it's kind of going off that we can start modeling everything as well, since we just kind of went line by line with everything. Yeah. So just like kind of going off of just like your reorganization and everything. I really liked what some other stuff that stood out with me like the second time hearing it. Where is it? Like your transition back to your personal life was really good. I liked how you did that. Just kind of, you didn't like, it wasn't just clear as day. Like you just made like the transition, like you kind of slowly, and then like the audience, like as like we're listening, we kind of like go from just like hearing like just kind of like basic like fact giving speech to like, oh wait, like this is like about her, like she really like knows what she's talking about and stuff.
Yeah, I think that order works honestly a lot better. And
I think it's it helps to just the audience relate to it more as well. Something I think you could continue to work on, which I like your introduction, but like more like you need like the other thing, a little more of an attention grabber, I guess it's fair to say. Like what John and I were talking about, because I literally opened my speech initially up as the definition of the word experience.
Yeah.
And so just kind of, so you talk about like how the beginning you compare like the millennials versus Gen Z. Isn't that like that's your fun introduction? Yeah. I'm trying to think of like a possible way on how you can really just kind of like grab the audience's attention with it. Because even though like your body and everything is really, really good, I think we can do a little bit better with getting everyone's attention just so that from the jump that they're more
I think I have a way I could do that, actually.
Okay.
Because what I was trying to go about, which is like one problem that I have, which with giving speeches, is that I feel like I'm very like formal, and I have a hard time like implementing humor and whatnot.
Yeah,
so
I think that would be good. Though.
I was gonna like, I don't know if I started out by saying something like, I'm an older, like, I don't even know, like, I'm an older Gen Z, because like, who says that? Like, I don't know, I can change my voice obviously and be like, I guess I could just like make it like a joke or whatever, because like everyone says people in like the Generation Z, like, we're so focused on technology, and I'll be like, I'm an older Generation Z because I didn't grow up being surrounded on my phone. It wasn't like I could like, I don't even know.
Like maybe even this, like, this could be kind of out there, but like even if you had like an old phone, like an old, like just or like anything technology based, like you come in, like you start with it and you're just like, you look at it and like you have like the trash can by you or something, and you're like, like this is like for like millennials or like something along those lines. And like myself personally, I grew up as a Gen Z, and then you kind of dive in that way just so just kind of more
like bringing in something that, I mean, even that MacBook I have honestly would work. People think this is vintage, but I could even bring that in and be like, I'm an older Gen Z because like, older Generation Z because I didn't grow up like accustomed to iPads and just something like that, I guess.
Yeah, just along those lines. I think that would really help just from the jump, get everyone just their attention naturally. Yeah. And then once you kind of go through the works with all of your, talking about your younger generation, comparing it, then talking about like how 50 years ago, like the mental illness representation. There was another thing I really liked. So yeah, I think that's like more like just the modeling. I think your body is really, really good, and you have enough content and information like to get you the time and everything. And even then, I think we can work in a little bit like when we're developing more of your plan on just getting some of like that beef out of there, just the unneeded, just like you can kind of maybe point a little thing out here and there, but overall, I really do like it. I think your introduction was the main thing that needed the most work. Yeah. So then just the encouraging portion, as like kind of like I've said, I really didn't even know what a Gen Z was prior. Like I didn't have that much knowledge, but I really liked on how you made it even just relatable for myself, listening and like just taking notes and just like, I think it's just really cool how you make yourself out to be like this rare person with how you're born in 1997, but that's like a millennial, but you're not 21, like all that stuff. I think that's really cool, and just like something that the audience itself will be like, oh wow, it's like that's really, really unique, and that could help bring more attention to everything. Let's see. I really liked on how you talked about how in school, how like you weren't taught at home or at school about like just mental illness in general, and I think that's an ongoing issue, and how people aren't aware that like, counselors and like there's so much help out there that people are either oblivious to or they personally ignore. I think even just giving a speech to the class, it's going to open people's eyes, even like to someone that I also really liked your comparison, like when not comparison, your personal experience, like your finger thing that you have done, and all that stuff. And I think that can also help open people's eyes to even someone in the class that's just like, oh, I do stuff similar to that, and I've never like, obviously like this isn't trying to be like a life-changing for some people, but I think that your speech has the potential to really have people like that are emotionally like invested in it, and people will, I think, can walk away from it with more of just, that was like more than a speech, like they'll remember it from here on out, like and when they like see you in public, like, you know, her speech like really like changed like how I'm going about things and everything. I think that could be really cool as well. So maybe what we can do is try like another introduction maybe. We don't need to like dive more into the body yet. But I think maybe we can try and emphasize like a better introduction and going about that and just kind of experimenting with a couple things. if you find one that you think that will work best, we can go from there. But
I mean, I have like an idea right now. We can just like try it out.
yeah.
Even just like using my laptop as an example. Hold on, give me a second. I'm trying to think how to.
Okay. So should I start out with saying I was born in 1997, or should I just start out being like, I consider myself an older Gen Z, and then going about why I, and like then the differences?
I think what you could do is maybe relate to the birth year first, 1997, because I was born in 1996. And I feel like even though we're all like the same age and stuff, there's still like with a big speech and everything, there's a comfort level like once you address your actual age, and everyone's just like, okay, this is like the person's like my same age, and they feel like a little more just comfort in general with like listening and being more open to listening like to what you have to say. So maybe we can start with like just your birth year, and then we jump into like the Gen Z millennial time.
Okay, well, let's try that then.
Okay.
Okay.
And also like is that you were saying like your humor, like maybe like your tone of voice and everything, maybe just like a little more like, because like you've said, like I've noticed as well how you're very, very formal and extremely professional. Like maybe just like for the introduction, just show a little more like humor, I guess it's fair to say, but just a little like lackadaisical, just like because you're about to like, well, I don't know what you're exactly about to do, but you're going to get their attention, and then you can kind of slowly jump back into your formal ways and like be like, okay, well now she means business and all that stuff.
Okay, well tell me if you see like a difference in my voice. Okay. I was born in 1997. I consider myself an older Generation Z. I'm right up at the cutoff of being not a millennial, but being a part of this new generation that we consider the Gen Z. I didn't really realize I was a part of this generation because I always thought I had the characteristics of not living on my phone. I wasn't so engraved and engrossed in the iPad growing up and whatnot, which a lot of younger Generation Zs are doing. But
oh, you're fine. I had to do it a lot too.
I didn't grow up on my phone. I grew up outside playing house and creative games and reading books, stuff like that. Taking car trips. We didn't have a little TV in our car during those road trips. We had coloring books and paper and pens, and we were happy with that. But what I learned from Google was that being between this millennial and Gen Z age group, because I am born in 97 and I am 21 years old, I'm in this weird gap, this weird middle child type of thing. What I learned from being a part of Generation Z, which I consider myself an older, elder Generation Z, I learned that my generation is made up of entrepreneurs and co-creators. We're independent, we're outspoken. We have voices and we demand to be heard.
I say yes. I really like that a lot. I think your voice inflection was perfect, and something that really stood out to me was how you related like childhood memories. That kind of goes back on like the 1997. Like, all of us, like we obviously all had different childhoods, but we all like did relatively the same thing. So just talking about going outside to play, like playing house, road trips, like coloring books, like we didn't have like tablets and all that stuff. So I think that was really, really good. And just tying in all that childhood stuff, because then right away, like if I like heard you just talking like all that stuff, and I'm like, oh damn, I haven't talked about my childhood in a long time. Like where is this going? Like what is this about to do? So I think that was a really, really good addition. I like that a lot. So let's see, what about 33-ish minutes here? So yeah, I mean. So what we can do is we can start developing like your overall plan and everything. So like with your introduction, like you were saying,
have more of like a different attention getter, like the one I just did, compared to just going into saying.
Using just like relating back to your childhood and all that stuff. I think that was really, really good. Your voice inflection was really good as well. Let me think here. And then so then after that, you kind of do like you're hopping into your bodies and everything.
Or I guess even when I first started out, I just had this idea. When I first started out saying like I consider myself an older or like an elder Gen Z, and I can be like I guess I'll read you that little segment.
Okay, yeah, let's
if you
do
think
that.
this sounds better. Okay.
Come on.
I'm an older or so-called an elder Generation Z. I decided I was this older Generation Z, which might seem weird to you because I'm only 21 years old. I was born in 1997. But when I looked at the characteristics of what made this new generation, these younger kids, I didn't fall under any of those categories. Yes, I'm outspoken. Yes, I'm independent. I do believe I'm a co-creator. But I didn't grow up with technology right in my pocket. I grew up outside, playing house, playing Pioneer. I didn't grow up with an iPad, playing games. I didn't grow up with music and headphones in it every single second. And I didn't grow up taking road trips with a laptop on my lap. Just something
Yeah, that's
more
really
like
good.
that.
And yeah, because obviously you can like
Yeah.
do like research and like find out
Find
what
out
exact
more.
stuff that you want to like hit on
Uh-huh.
and all that. But I think that's really good and a big improvement from your initial
Yeah.
introduction.
And then go into like saying like like the age groups that make up millennials and like how I'm in between that.
Mhm.
And then go
Yeah, I think
into
that'd be really cool too. And do you define exactly what a Gen Z is like?
it's
from the start.
Oh no, I mean all it is like the generation that's after millennials, and it's the age group of 13 to 20-year-olds. So like
Is that well known?
I don't think so because I didn't even know that this
Okay.
was like a thing until
Okay, so that all right.
I thought I was a millennial, so I didn't even
That's
know that
comforting
was
to me then. That,
yeah.
like,
It's
but-
like yeah.
So maybe even just talking about when you were kind of like I'm like an elderly like Gen Z and all that stuff. Maybe they just like you can go on like a quick little tangent and be like what's a Gen Z? Well, a Gen Z is this and that like in comparison, just so like
Uh-huh.
right away. Because I'd hate for you to wait too long to define what
Yeah.
Gen Z is to the point where like it's 2.5 minutes in and everyone's like, what the hell is a Gen Z? Like
Yeah.
I don't like it was cool. You talk about childhood memories, like all that stuff, but I don't understand like the. So maybe just within like the first 30 seconds, even just getting all that across, just so there's no initial confusion and just, no opportunity to lose like the focus from any of the audience members.
Uh-huh.
And then you can also just start tying in like the childhood stuff because then once they're like, now that people are in their head, they're thinking like, are they a Gen Z? Are they a millennial?
Uh-huh.
And then while they're doing all that, then they're hearing you talk about the childhood memories. Then it's going to kind of all come back together as one for them. And
Yeah.
I feel like you'll have a lot more success in your speech with that, and there'll be a lot more clarity.
Or
Right.
even like saying something like, I'm an elder Gen Z. And then like going into saying like, I have 4 younger siblings, and what I'm always shocked about is the amount of time they're on their iPads, they're on Snapchat, they're on social media when
Like
they're
that.
13, 12 years old. I didn't grow up that way. I grew up with a landline, something like
Yeah.
that. And
I think that will also help people relate, like who have the younger siblings, and
Yeah.
they get to that because I have a brother that's
Yeah.
5 years younger than me, and they'll be like, yeah, like what the hell, like
yeah,
like, they
'cause
go
like,
through all this stuff.
the
And then,
landline, that's definitely a thing. A lot
Yeah.
of younger kids don't even know what
Yeah.
that is.
landline and dial up.
Uh-huh.
You didn't get to like text, like AOL, all like just things like that. I
Exactly.
think that would be.
Okay, I could tie
Really,
something in
Mhm.
there.
I think that would help you a lot as well. And then let's see. Okay. So then, yeah, just going off your plan, I think that's a solid introduction now.
Uh-huh.
And then when you can keep on just kind of working slowly but surely, like on getting your body and everything a little more comfortable with
Yeah.
everything, with
Uh-huh.
just like your overall flow.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, like I mean, the information's there. You
Uh-huh.
have enough content to talk about for more than 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But it's more of just keeping it a good, like, not story necessarily, but just an overall better way to just present the whole entire
Uh-huh.
thing. Let me see if there's anything that.
How are you feeling about my like conclusion?
I meant to talk about that a little bit as well. I did like how you tied everything back to where
My quote about how like listening in a way that makes other people want to speak and speaking with, and then
Yes,
how I said
that, and then you also, where did I? Just what like your generation is, like you kind of retouch back on that.
mhm.
Because you like at the beginning you give us like the initial background of Gen Z, millennial, what you are,
Yeah.
and like how it's made you, and then you kind of at the end you're like, I am a Gen Z, like because at the beginning you're kind of questioning it a little bit, and then at the end it's like you've given everything, and now that there's a final answer, which is kind of obviously what a conclusion needs to be.
Because I have the part when I go into the body, I have the part where I'm like, I'm a part of a new generation, the more accepting generation, the generation where I sat and watched in class, the first African American become president.
Mhm.
I talk about that. And then at the end, my conclusion was my generation has the ability to listen in a way that makes others want to speak and speak in a way that makes others want to listen. My generation has proven we can change perspectives and minds that we once thought were unchangeable. We won't ever, in that part, and then I have, but yeah, how I go back to that. So you think my ending point where I said we won't ever be able to control what media puts out, but what we can do is change the way we hear what is spoken and speak in a way that acknowledges what we listen to.
Yeah. And then going off of that, I think also when you talk about your, like how you get to witness like the first African American president.
Yeah.
Just even like little experiences like that, that just like only people our age were really like the prime audience for, and like, with our young minds and like how influential it was. So I think even just coming up with a couple other ones to like add in, even throughout, maybe even a little before, maybe a little after, just like so like the occasional just like nudge on the shoulder, like kind of just restating what everything is and just tying everything back together, like I was saying, just so it's also not like you're just talking about just giving statistics and personal experience. So then you're just kind of, because obviously everyone's going to be interested with both of those, but like the overall relatable things is what's going to keep everyone there for the entire speech. So maybe just keeping that in mind, maybe adding one or two of those. And then that can help with time as well. So maybe what we can do really quick is kind of like a final run through. Obviously, you're not going to have it perfect whatsoever, but more of just like, and I can even stop you like here and there when if I want to add anything, or if you notice anything about yourself that you're like, oh no, I want to add this. So we can start off like with your introduction, and then you can kind of jump right into the body, and then so we can just kind of see how that flows. And then even if you skip a little bit of the body, and then you just kind of, or you go like to the end of your body and then jump into your conclusion, just so we can kind of see like
how it looks.
Just like the initial flow, because the middle of the pack is something that is like the easiest part to adjust. So just we can see how we're flowing first, and we can go from there.
Okay.
Try that. Yeah, we're at 43 minutes too. So.
Okay, ready?
Yeah.
Not going to be that great, but we can at least see how.
Oh yeah,
okay.
Right.
I'm an elder Generation Z. I always had this impression that I was a millennial because of my characteristics. I didn't grow up with a cell phone in my hand. I don't even think I got a cell phone until late junior high. I didn't grow up with an iPad. I didn't grow up with living off of technology the way my younger siblings, who are a part of Gen Z, also have. A millennial is basically anybody that was born before 97. And a Gen Z is anybody that was born after 97. So I'm in this weird gap where I'm not a millennial, but I'm not quite a Gen Z. I'm an elder Gen Z. What I learned from Google was that my generation is a generation where we live off technology. That people might say we're entitled because we've grown accustomed to getting things we want. We've grown accustomed to telling other people what we want done. We're entrepreneurs. We're co-creators. We're independent and we're outspoken. We're leaders. Being a part of the Gen Z, I've had the opportunity to not only see what millennials have done to change history in major ways, but what my generation has done so far as well to embark in changing history in a lot of major ways too. Being an elder Gen Z, I've witnessed what it was like growing up without an iPhone or an iPad. And I witnessed what it was like being creative. Unlike the younger part of my generation that's grown accustomed to this technology lifestyle, we now see 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds when I'm babysitting saying they want the iPad. That's never how I grew up. So I'm an elder Gen Z. Although I've been a part of this generation that has made increasing changes in society to advances ranging from technology to lifestyle to movements, one topic that I haven't seen advanced or portrayed in a way I would like in 2018 is the portrayal of mental illnesses.
So yeah, I think that's really good. And then so what we can maybe do from here is, because then I kind of know how you talk about like the mental illness, like in school and all of this stuff. So what we can kind of do is, since we're getting closer to the end here, maybe just go towards the back end of your speech, maybe like your closing paragraph, and then that jumps into your conclusion. Because I think you have a good flow with your introduction into your first body. So I think that's good there. And so we can just kind of get a glimpse of what we're looking at here.
It's all the middle. Okay, so I think this is kind of my ending.
Okay.
Where I'm like, I was born with anxiety, depression, and OCD. From the moment I was brought into this world, my genetic makeup and my DNA has made me more likely, more susceptible to be part of this 1 in 5 statistic that are struggling with mental illnesses. I'm not ashamed of it, because I've learned through proper resources and information that it's not a negative thing that defines me. I'm not dangerous or a threat to society because of my DNA and the way my mind works. Living with anxiety, I have periods of anxiousness, fear, and worry. I'm highly sensitive because of it, but it also means that I care a great deal about other people. I have moments when I struggle with my depression where I'm silent and I don't want to speak. But it also means I understand the value of listening to others and that makes them want to speak, and speaking in a way that makes others want to listen. My generation has the ability to listen in a way that makes others want to speak, and to speak in a way that makes others want to listen. We have voices that demand to be listened to, and we have voices that demand to be heard. My generation has proven we can change perspectives and minds of the ones that we once thought were unchangeable. We won't ever be able to control what media puts out through the box office, through TV shows on Netflix. But what we can do is change the way we hear what is spoken and speak in a way that acknowledges what we listen to.
Yeah, I thought that flowed a lot better as well. So yeah, overall, I mean, I like it now a lot more than I did initially. I think that's obvious. Yeah, I think if you just stick to like your, get your attention grabber, and then you just do like the bodies and everything we've talked about, and then just have a good flow into your conclusion to where you kind of retouch back on your introduction and a little bit of the body stuff as well, just to kind of refresh everyone's memory. And then your last paragraph there, I like it a lot. And I think it is a lot more. It's a lot more deep than just from just looking at it. I think it carries a lot more with the mind and everything. So I think that's a really good way to go out. So
awesome.
That is a wrap with this coaching session. Yeah, thank you.